Hey, everybody, what's going on? Wednesday time once again.
Yeah.
For a true crime show.
Yeah, we're going to be dealing with this dude. Yeah, no. Yeah, I've been studying up on him.
This was, I mean, all school shootings are bad, obviously. This one, was the worst school shooting in Texas and I believe one of the 5 worst ones in United States history.
And one of the most ate up fucking police responses ever.
I swear to God, like one of the best things on YouTube about this is a channel called Dire Trip, and he did like a 2-hour, very very detailed breakdown of the whole thing. He had like a whole history of like the guy, of the shooter, and like a whole timeline of the thing. And he had like a lot of really good details in there. And I was watching it. I watched it 2 times actually, and this fucking thing, it's so frustrating and infuriating to watch because this is notable for the police response being absolute ass.
Yeah.
Holy cow. And really only one guy is still like pending. Like he's in jail and they haven't had his trial yet. So we don't know how it's gonna go. Like I think he's up for like 10 counts of child endangerment or something like that. I can't remember the exact charges, but they haven't had his trial yet.
What,
but
a cop?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize the cops got in trouble for this.
Yeah. Well, he did. Like a couple of them did, but they got, they didn't get charged or whatever. Like a couple of them were arrested, but he was arrested because he was kind of seen as the one that was supposed to be in charge. And he didn't really drop the ball on this one. And it's kind of funny because it's not funny, but in a fucked up kind of way, that as soon as the shit happened, there was obviously like a response by, law enforcement, everything like that, coming out trying to glaze the cops and like what a good job they did and stuff. But then when all the other shit started coming out, like all the body cam footage and all the radio, like, and all the 911 calls and stuff like that, they were like, oh my God, they massively whiffed it.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was.
I could just tell through the video cams. There's like the way those guys were walking, are like these guys are scared, and like
Yeah.
they don't know what they're doing.
They were either scared or they didn't give a shit, or they
were scared,
or they didn't know what was going on. I think it was like a combination of all this because a whole bunch of like cops of lots of different agencies like responded to this.
They were scared because they went in with pistols, and on the ground was a bunch of 5.56 casings, and a dude went and they started looking at those casings and passing around because he's got an AR. They were scared because they thought they were overgunned, but they were outnumbered. The dude, had they just rushed him, they'd have taken him easily. They're not dealing with fucking Delta Force. I mean, he's a kid.
It was one skinny 18-year-old.
Yeah, and it was the first time he'd actually even shot a gun. You could have just overwhelmed him. Yeah, somebody would have got shot, but you're wearing body armor. You probably would have lived. And these kids are dying in there from blood. He shot a lot of them up, and they're fucking bleeding to death. It took him 70 minutes to get in there and kill him.
77 minutes. 77.
Yeah, to get in there and kill this kid, and he was a pushover. They were just scared. But it's not just contained to the United States. China's response to knifing people, because they got the same shit in China. Some fucking loser will get a kitchen knife and jump into a preschool, and like stab like 40 kids. And the cops show up and they're scared to do anything about him and rush him because, he's got a knife. You got a fucking gun. It's just fucking, they're cowards,
Well, a lot of people in this case pointed out, one of the teachers who was all shot up but actually survived, thankfully, he was like, I heard like some of the, radio chatter and shit like that they were saying. It's like, well, they had, the cops had, tagged like vests and shit like that, but it's like, and AR rounds will go through that, and that they didn't want to do it, it'd be suicide and all this other kind of shit. He's like, bitch, I didn't have a fucking vest. Neither did any of them kids. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, get your coward asses in there. But so like watching because man, like all of the body cam footage came out, like all the 911 calls, like you can see all of it. And actually, at the end of that one documentary that guy on YouTube made, they actually show like a little bit of the aftermath. It's all blurred out, like you can't see, but you can still tell it's a fucking bloodbath. Yeah. So like I said, deadliest school shooting in Texas. 21 people killed, 2 teachers and 19 students. All of them were 4th graders. aged 9, 10, 11. And the kid who did it, this is another thing. I know it's always kind of like hindsight's 2020, but this was another one of those kids where
he was telling
everybody he was going to do something like this.
Yeah.
And I think everybody thought that he was just trying to be an edgelord. Which, a lot of people do that, but I don't know. I don't know what kind of intervention would have stopped this kid. You know what I mean? I don't know. Something might have. But this was another kid that he didn't really have a reason other than just wanting to be famous or notorious, or, he's fucked up. We'll talk about him at length before we get into the timeline and everything like that. But like I said, it's a very depressing story that could have been... Now, in the police's defense, and this is the only time I'm going to say that because they absolutely fucked this up like big time. In their defense, most of the kids that were shot before the police got there. Like, the kid got in there and like started shooting, and so some of them couldn't have been saved. Because the cops showed up. They were there within a couple minutes. You know what I mean? But
look,
but
I'm a professional, all right, when it comes to violence. Anybody who wants to kill anybody can kill anybody. Doesn't matter if you're armed or unarmed. There's vehicles, there's gasoline. The best fucking weapons are just clubs. You can make that out of nothing. That's better than blades. If you want to fucking take somebody out, you can do it. Willpower has a lot to do with it. And that's what this kid wanted to do. As long as you're willing to die, you can kill anyone. Now, killing somebody and getting away with it and surviving, that's the trick. But when they don't care about that, that's why terrorists always have the advantage. Because them surviving is not in the plan. So that's a huge advantage. So you can't prevent this. If you got a nut who wants to kill somebody, he's going to do it. And it doesn't matter what he has or doesn't have. Where there's a will, there's a way. All right. And you can say, well, guns make it easier. Nah. Trucks have a better kill ratio than guns. Because to be good with a gun, you have to understand how to deploy a weapon, where to use it, what the timing is. There's a lot of practice involved. With a truck, you can just jump into a truck and run right into a crowd. All right. And they average more. Some of the Islamic terrorist groups, what was it, ISIS? ISIS was encouraging their guys in Europe not to even go for guns because they weren't any good with them. Fucking, they said go for trucks, and they did that, and they scored higher kill ratios. Trucks are better. There are other stuff, but I ain't gonna fucking talk about it. But there's stuff you can get out of the hardware store, and things that you can cook up in the kitchen, and you can take care of a lot of people with that. All right, just you have to know what you're doing, and it's dangerous to handle it. But no, there's willpower and knowledge. And now that I'm not sure how freely artificial intelligence will give you the information that you know, but shit, the terrorist groups all know how to make stuff. That's part of their training. You can't prevent anything. There's no such thing as prevention. Best thing to do is just equalize everybody. Put everybody on equal footage. That way a man can kill a man can kill another man, a woman can kill a man can kill a man. Everybody can kill everybody. It's mutually assured destruction, and then that tends to keep people in check. The problem is when you give one person an advantage over everybody else. That's where the problem comes about. Just like here in the United States, places where all the gun shit happens, all the gun problems happen is places where they're illegal, because that's where they're going to go to use a gun because they have an advantage. Places where they're
not here. This was Texas.
Yeah, but this is also like a fluke, and most gun deaths in the United States, I believe, are fucking suicides, or at least half of them. And more power to you. If you've decided you got to get the fuck out of here, do what you got to do. Because if you look at the details, a lot of these people have terminal diseases. So they get depressed, got terminal disease, they're not going to live long. They just take themselves out. Which I think that's your right, if you want to go. If they had legal means to do it, then, be a lot easier on them. But, where there's a will, there's a way. You can get drugs and give yourself an OD, too. But I think what happens is guys want a violent way and an honorable way out. They're gonna plug themselves, and they have a weapon in hand, so they just use that. And they think it's more instant. Which even with a headshot, you could kick around for a little while after that. I don't know. It might knock you unconscious. You'd be lucky.
All right, so let's get into this because it's a very complicated story, and I don't, and I've been up since 4:30, so I don't I don't want to be here for like 4
hours. We're not drinking today anyway, though. We got a party, we got a party all this weekend coming up, Friday and Saturday. So
yeah, so we're
not gonna drink.
I'm lighting it up on it. Well, plus, like I said, like the GLP-1 is making me like not want to drink as much too because I don't want to fuck up my stomach. So yeah, this shooting, as I mentioned, happened in a town called Uvalde, Texas, which is actually, I believe, only about an hour from the Mexican border. It's not a huge town. It's 15, 16, 17,000 people, predominantly Hispanic, as a lot of the towns in Texas are down there. A lot of poverty, but an okay kind of place. But May 24th, 2022, this school shooting took place, and like I said, they're still having repercussions from it now. They actually are supposed to tear down. It was the school where it happened was Robb Elementary School, and it's closed. They closed it right after the tragedy, and they're planning on tearing it down. They actually built another school called Legacy Elementary School, which opened in October of last year, where they sent all the students and stuff like that. But they still haven't torn down the old one as far as I'm aware. So it's just kind of sitting there with like gates in front of it, and it's kind of creepy. I'm sure like lots of urban explorers and shit like that probably go in there and like take pictures and shit because that's fucking horrifying. All right, so I guess we'll kind of talk about the shooter and like what led up to this shit happening. Like I said, it seems like this guy gives me real Elliot Rodger kind of vibes. Yeah. Also not quite as incel-y or anything, but I should note that one of his heroes, I don't know if I want to go that far, but like something that he was really into was, do you guys remember that documentary on Netflix, Don't Fuck with Cats, that was about Luca Magnotta?
Oh yeah.
He was like obsessed with that dude, who was another dude who just wanted to be famous by doing like fucked up shit on the internet and ended up killing somebody. So he was like fascinated by that guy. So this kid here, Salvador Ramos, that was his name. Now he was originally born in Fargo, North Dakota in 2004, which is crazy. Because I forget that this happened like so recently, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just kind of like, so he turned 18 and it's like 2022 and I'm like, holy crap, holy crap, like people born in 2004. Now he didn't have, his parents were very poor. Like they separated not long after he was born. I think he's still a baby. And so he moved with his mom back to Uvalde, Texas, which is where she was originally from. He had an older sister too. And his dad wasn't really around. He just kind of took off and didn't really have much communication with the family anymore. And his mom, she was kind of a drug addict a little bit. Like I said, they were super, super poor. And she did like some minor kind of crimes, you know what I mean? Like writing bad checks, like that kind of shit, you know what I mean? Drug possession, that kind of thing. He also had his maternal grandmother who would play a significant part in the whole ordeal, like later on. Now, no one knows if this is true or not, but Salvador did have a couple of girlfriends, you know what I mean? Or maybe just one. But he apparently told her a bit later when he was a teenager that when he was a kid, one of his mom's boyfriends had sexually molested him like over a long period of time. I don't doubt it. I'm not saying like it excuses it or anything like that. There's no proof of it, but he did tell that to her and she subsequently told it to authorities, you know what I mean? But from like when he was a little kid, they actually, like his teachers thought he was a lovely child. He had a little kind of a speech impediment, like a stutter or something like that, which he was kind of self-conscious about. But his teachers, up until about the third grade, thought he was just very pleasant to have in class. He was like super eager to learn and things like that. He did apparently get bullied a little bit, just because the family was poor and he like wore the same clothes every day and stuff like that. And like I said, he had a little bit of a speech impediment. We will talk a little about him being bullied because he did talk about that a lot, but after the shooting, it kind of came out later that some people that had known him in high school said that he wasn't bullied, or it wasn't like he was saying it was. Like, so there might have been some kind of, he might have been perceiving things that way or exaggerating or something. Like,
he cried a lot, to people about how they were picking on him. And he would also, a lot of his writings about how ugly he was. But I think he's trying to fish for sympathy, because he's actually a pretty good looking guy. And he actually had a good looking girlfriend who was on the other side of town, or actually about an hour and a half away. So he couldn't see her all that much. But no, there wasn't anything physically wrong with him. It was all mental. I think what his big problem was, he didn't have any positive male guidance in his life. His dad really didn't have much of a role in his life. His dad seemed kind of beta to me, or disinterested, and he was the kind of guy who would try to pick on other people and then fail. And that was what one of the kids said about him, because people could turn it around on him and fuck with him, and that pissed him off. But he would start it. It could have been maybe he felt insecure. He had a bunch of inferiority and insecurities. So he would try to attack others preemptively, and then when they would retaliate, he thought he was being picked on. I think it was that kind of thing.
Yeah, it might have been that.
I think he kind of had like a complex about it, a persecution complex. He must have disappointed himself. Maybe he wasn't living up to his own expectations, so he was trying to be more than what he was.
Well, he definitely was trying to do that.
Yeah, he's trying
as we'll see, like
right, but he didn't quite have it to know how to do it. And he's living in a town where everybody knows each other, and
it's not a huge place.
Yeah, and it's 80% Hispanic, and he's Hispanic like all the rest of them. So he's kind of like, he doesn't have any distinguishing characteristics about himself. He sees himself as like Joe Nobody, and he gets a job, and he drops out of school at one point and gets a job, and people's parents were looking at him and telling their kids, this is what, if you don't go to school, you'll end up like him. Well, shit, he's working, he's got a job.
Yeah.
Just so they all knew each other, and I think that was part of the pressures on him. Maybe if he was a little more anonymous, he could have made a different group of friends and got out of it, but that's just not the way it was going.
Yeah, hard to say. It could be that, I mean, because some people, we've talked about some serial killers and things like that, where I don't think even like living in the most ideal environment would have helped them. Because sometimes I think there's just something fundamentally wrong with some people.
Well, this guy's
it's young. Rarer, but you know what I mean.
But this guy's so young, he's kind of not well formed yet.
That's true.
Could have sent him into the military and totally change him. But that didn't cross his mind, though.
I guess not. Well, like I said, he didn't really. I mean, he did the shooting only a few days after his 18th birthday, so it's like he was just still. He didn't have time. He was still a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like when he was really little, like I said, like all his teachers thought he was great, but then like by the time third grade rolled around, which if you're not in the United States, that's about 7-8 years old, he started to not so much disciplinary issues, but he was having some learning difficulties. I don't know if he maybe had dyslexia or something like that, but he seemed to be like trying, but not really able to kind of keep up with the work and stuff like that. Now it does seem that the school did kind of try to help him, like, maybe put him in speech therapy, or, put him in special ed classes or get tutors or something like that. But his parents or his mom and whoever she was dating at the time didn't really seem all that interested, or they didn't, reach out for any resources or anything like that. It doesn't seem like anything like that happened. Now, this is interesting because, as I mentioned, the shooting occurred at Robb Elementary, and it was a 4th grade class. It was actually 2 4th grade classes that he targeted. And Salvador went to Robb Elementary. And I'm not sure if this is the case because there are kind of conflicting reports, but it might be that his 4th grade class was in one of the 2 classrooms that he shot up, that's why he went back to it, even though it was many years later. Now, one of the things that he said that made a big impression on him was when he was in 4th grade and he's at Robb Elementary. He said he had like the worst memories of being bullied there. And he said that even the girls picked on him and everyone was really mean to him. And there was one particular incident where he was like spacing out or whatever. And this girl like tied his shoelaces together, kind of, classic old school prank. And he didn't notice. And then he got up and tripped and like fell and busted his face. And everyone kind of laughed at him. And according to him, like even the teacher, like either kind of laughed at him too or like didn't give a shit. Like I said, I don't know if that's true or not. Like I said, it doesn't seem like, I mean, when you're in 4th grade, shit like that is a big deal. I get it. It doesn't seem like a big deal to an adult, obviously, but it for real, like supposedly made like a really big impression on him. And he would later say that was like one of his worst memories of childhood, like everyone kind of laughing at him.
Oracle's saying that little kids shouldn't have to go through this. Yeah, that's to be said.
Yeah, we'll get there. Just wait.
She's talking about, the smearing blood.
Yeah, I know.
Here's the thing. You, everybody in this conversation are products of modernity, all right? We grow up with these certain expectations of like safety, law and order, electricity and food, shit like that. But this is actually kind of a new concept. And it's only kind of happening sporadically. And there are other places in the world where it's not happening. Most kids throughout history had brutal lives. The shit that was going on here in the United States during the time of the Indian Wars, 1700s, 1600s, 1800s, they'd be in school and all of a sudden they'd get attacked by damn, Apaches or something. Run in there and kill the teacher and scalp the kids. Some of them would live, a lot of them would die. Some of them taken into slavery, and then some of them would survive it and come through it the other end and live and they, tell their story. It's in some ways gotten better than it was. Then the weird shit that's happened, in just China, where there was cannibalism in the fucking 17 and 1800s, even the 1900s there was cannibalism. We're all the descendants of people that have survived fucking horrible things. So we just kind of evolved to be flexible. And, bad shit's possible. It's kind of normal for bad shit to happen. We're lucky to be living in such peaceful times.
Yeah, I mean, that's perspective on it. I'm just saying that but we're not saying that this is horrible. We're not trying to like minimize.
Not minimizing, just saying that it's lucky that we're lucky that it's not as bad as it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, where was I? Okay. So, now evidently this whole incident with 4th grade and him talking about how bullied he was, which some people have said, that's why he chose that particular classroom or whatever. They did talk to his teacher, his 4th grade teacher later on, like after the shooting happened. And the teacher said that she didn't really remember, any like that. She's like, he did get bullied a little bit, but she had like talked to his mom about it, and they said, she said he had some friends in the class and it wasn't really that bad. And actually when they went back through Salvador's own notes, because he wrote extensively like about, he was, like I said, he was kind of constantly crying about how mean everyone was to him and shit like that. He really didn't start talking about being bullied until he was like in middle school, like not really 4th grade, you know what I mean? So it might have been that he just looked back on that and sort of extrapolated, but I don't know. So So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not saying anyone should get bullied. I'm just saying that he might have been perceiving it, like you said, like it might have been he was kind of a bully, and then people would retaliate, and then he would be like, "Why are you picking on me?" Like, you know what I mean? A cry bully is what they call that. So could have been that. I'm not really
I
sure.
think it was a cry bully.
Like I said, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So as he got older, like I said, his academic performance really didn't get any better, and he started kind of like blowing off school, like not showing up. And I guess like his mom didn't really care or didn't seem to, because he just didn't go. Like, because I think that starting in about 2017, 2018, during some school years he was absent like more than 100 days, and he failed every test. Like his grades were down in the toilet, shit like that. He did get suspended from school in late 2018, like because he hit a kid or he got in a fight or something like that. He did get in fights now and then, but he wasn't like a problem student in the sense that it happened over and over again. They said most of the time he just wasn't there, like he just didn't show up. You know what I mean? So it could have been that. Like, he just wasn't showing up most of the time. When he went to high school, this this is fucking crazy. He's in ninth grade. He fails ninth grade. So they hold him back and he has to do it again. And then he fails the second time. And I think he failed the third time too. So even though he didn't finish high school, obviously, but even though he was in high school for technically the 4 years that you're supposed to be, he actually never got out of the ninth grade because he couldn't pass it. You know what I mean? And I think most of that was, one, because he just, like I said, failed all the tests and he just never showed up. Now, at the school, I will note that he'd kind of starting to grow his hair like a little bit long and shaggy, wearing, kind of black hoodies and shit like that. And some of the other kids, and they even said this before it happened, started teasing him and calling him school shooter, which,
but he adopted that. He called himself that.
Yeah,
basically.
But like some of the kids said, well, there were a couple other kids that we called that too. It wasn't just him.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, mostly we were just fucking around. We were just kind of joking. But a lot of them did think he was a weirdo, like especially the girls, because he was kind of real abusive toward girls, and they were creeped out by him. You know what I mean?
He was the kind of guy that would get attached real quick and then start to get bossy.
Yeah.
He thought that he'd get bossy and possessive real quick. And stalkery.
Yeah, he was that kind of motherfucker.
He was emotionally needy.
Yeah. But yeah, because I guess they started calling him school shooter, like I said, because he kind of looks like your stereotypical, like I said, with the baggy black clothes. He was obsessed with guns and obsessed with gore sites, and shit like that. But like some of the other kids said, yeah, we teased some of the other kids like that too, that kind of looked like that or had that same aesthetic, if you want to call it that, or the same interest, like that. It's like, yeah, what's up, school shooter, like that kind of shit. Now, in late 2021. Uvalde High School, where he was going, actually just said fuck it and withdrew him because he just never showed up and he was failing everything, and they're just like, we don't see any point anymore, like, for him to even be here. So yeah, like I said, there was nothing egregious, but I think it was just mostly because he didn't show up most of the time. And I think too that because there was a lot of speculation later on, particularly because the kids had called him school shooter, and he'd had all these academic problems, and he wasn't kicked out of school. They just unenrolled him after
he stopped showing up
because they just didn't see the point anymore. Because they're like, well, you can't catch up. You know what I mean? You're gonna be fucking 40 before you get out of here. You know what I mean?
He needed to go for his GED, but he didn't give a shit.
No, he didn't really give a shit. You know what I mean? So. So like I said, I don't know, because there's a lot of kids that are troubled, and there's a lot of kids that do this kind of shit, and they're not all gonna end up doing what he did, so...
He was just aimless.
Yeah, it's just kind of hard to predict, like, who's gonna go through with it.
He lived online and fantasy prone, and didn't like where he lived. Moved in with his grandma because he couldn't get along with his mom.
Yeah, eventually I'll get to that.
He was just kind of an aimless dude. He needed to grow up a few years, get a GED, maybe go into the military. Maybe he'd have been better off. But there was no future for him in that town.
Now, I think
absolutely true.
His older sister, I believe, went into the military.
Yeah.
Like before, I think she left home. She was a few years older than him, and I think I don't know what branch she was in though.
Yeah, his reputation was shot in that town. He had no future there. He had to get out of that town and start over. To stay there, he was doomed. But he didn't have the ability to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't drive.
Couldn't drive.
Nothing like that.
Dude couldn't drive.
And there was, I mean, like I said, it's not a big town, so there's not a lot to do there. So I kind of feel like even before he was, unenrolled from school, he was getting like really isolated. Like I said, his sister left home. He didn't really get along with his mom all that well. He had one close friend, I think his name was Steven, but he lived like an hour away in San Antonio. He also had a girlfriend, but she eventually broke up with him because he was getting too creepy.
Sending too many damn messages.
Yeah, and like basically like you have to talk to me, you have to like that kind of shit.
And she lived an hour and a half away. She was cute.
Yeah, because they had footage of her like from FaceTime or whatever.
Yeah, he could attract good looking girls. He just couldn't keep them. There was nothing about him that was attractive in terms of his personality. He didn't have anything going for him.
Yeah,
he was living in the past, man. And he didn't have much of a future because he did graduate from high school and he was just still in that town, and everybody in that town knew who he was. It was going to be hard for him to get a job, hard to get a girlfriend in that town. They didn't like him.
Yeah, because everyone just
he had to get out of there and start over, but he had no way of getting out at that point.
Everyone just thought he was kind of off. You know what I mean? But his former girlfriend, like after she broke up with him, said that he had told her that he either wasn't planning to live beyond 18 or something was going to happen to him that he wasn't going to live beyond 18. You know what I mean? After she broke up with him, she said that he kept harassing her, like calling her, sending her messages, harassing her friends and her new boyfriend, shit like that. And like I said, at the house, he was fighting with his mom all the time, like punching holes in the walls and other kind of crap. And right around this time, too, he decides that he is going to be famous. And he starts to develop this persona, I guess, that... And I'm not sure if it was just some character that he was putting on, you know what I mean? Or if this was really the way he was going now. So he started all these, social media channels like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Yubo, which is a streaming platform, which I had never heard of. I guess it's based out of France. But he was big on that one. Now, I will note that he posted videos and shit like that of him doing like your regular like loser edgelord shit, like punching bags and that kind of crap. Like he had like the punching bag like down on the ground, like punching it and sparring with his friend and shit like that. It's all trying to be tough.
Yeah, he eventually some of the videos that he did make, he was throwing some pretty good combinations. He's a lightweight guy, probably only maybe like 135 pounds, maybe. Then, but he was pretty fast. You could tell that he was.
I mean, he said he even had like eating disorders, so yeah, he was pretty skinny.
Yeah. So I don't know how much fighting experience he had, but he got a little bit of training. He was but didn't he say he went to he was learning some of it by watching videos.
Yeah, they said he was basically just watching MMA and shit like that. Yeah, watching MMA. Trying to learn how to fight from watching MMA videos on YouTube.
But some videos, he was throwing fucking combos and shit. He was, he was doing okay. Not the same as actually being in fights, but, he was...
I mean, he was trying. It's better than nothing. He also did a lot of online gaming, and it will shock no one that he was super abusive toward female players whenever they appeared. And
if he would lose, he would start picking on the females.
Yeah, and he would get like real butt hurt.
Yeah, so he'd start punching down in his mind. He's punching down.
Yeah,
we lost because of you. That kind of shit.
You stupid girl.
Yeah.
You and your ovaries.
Yeah,
ruining your ability to play video games. You know what I mean? These dudes are fucking ridiculous. Now they do know, like, because they obviously like searched his computers and everything like that, like after the tragedy. They know that he had searched information about sociopathy, so he must have thought that he had sociopathic tendencies, and seemed interested in getting treatment for it, but that never happened, obviously. So yeah, so he was getting more and more obsessed with violence and with being famous or notorious, I guess. And he really wanted attention for his social media accounts. And even though like hardly anybody was watching them, he would like brag about how many followers he had. Like, you know, every time he gets a new follower, he makes this big, huge fucking deal about it. Like he's like, I'm already famous, and why should I even like what you know, why should I even grace you with my presence? He was just so I think this was almost it might have started out as kind of like a fake it till you make it kind of thing. You know what I mean? Where he's like, I'm acting like I'm already famous, and then it just kind of took over because he just comes across like a completely delusional,
Worked for David Bowie.
arrogant. Well, yeah, but I mean,
he could play guitar, was talented though.
well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like it doesn't really work for you if you're just some untalented loser that can't do anything. And this right here, I mean, I didn't have any sympathy for this kid anyway, but this right here is when I was just like, nope, blast him into the sun. Because remember how I said that he got obsessed with Luca Magnotta and that documentary that's on Netflix, Don't Fuck with Cats. So he started doing some of the same shit. Like there's a video that he posted. I don't remember what platform he posted it on, but he's driving around with some other guy and shooting a BB gun at people that are just like walking down the street. It's at night, and he has a dead cat in a plastic bag.
Yeah, but they don't know if he killed that cat or found the cat.
But I will note that many of his friends and stuff like that said he was doing cruelty to animals, and that included cats. So, like I said, into the sun.
They didn't give an example of what he was doing though. I don't know. You know what I mean?
No, well, like I said, it was just kind of
It's
just such a long thing, and it's you know what I mean. So now he wanted to buy a bunch of guns because I think even around this time he was planning on doing something like to get famous. So he decides he's got to get a job. So in late 2021, like not long after he was unenrolled from school, he got a job at Whataburger. But he got fired after he supposedly threatened a female coworker. Again, pretty on brand. Then he got a job at Wendy's, and the manager and his coworker said that he was real withdrawn, like he wouldn't really talk to them or hang out with them or anything like that. But apparently he got in an argument with a coworker and like threatened to fight him, and you know, so it was just not a great. And like I said, all the female employees like thought he was creepy and weird. So he was earning money there, and he also his grandfather had like installed air conditioners and would pay Salvador to help him out, you know what I mean? So he was still living at home with his mom. He didn't have a car. He didn't really have pay bills or anything like that. So he was basically started socking his money away, you know. And like I said, it seemed like he was posting to social media like all these pictures of like guns and stuff that he wanted. So you can imagine where that money's gonna go. And because he had been called school shooter, like jokingly, sort of, at school, he decided he was gonna lean into that persona. And he would go around like talking about how much he admired school shooters and how he was thinking about doing it one of these days. And would post pictures of himself. Like he did actually end up buying this tactical vest type of situation. And also posed with a BB gun I guess he was trying to make people think it was a real gun, but you know what I mean? Because he was too young to buy one at that stage because he's only 17 at this stage. So like I said, I kind of feel like people were concerned. Like a lot of times when he would post some of the fucked up shit that he posted on, you know, various social media platforms, it would get reported. But as far as I know, like none of his shit was ever taken down, which is crazy because you can post like really innocuous shit and get it taken down, but you post shit like this and apparently that's fine. I don't know. A lot of his shit did get reported, but never taken down. Not really sure why, but you know. So I don't really think so. So like I said, I don't think like any law enforcement or anything like that like got any. Nobody reported him or nothing like that. Even though
I think the reason why is I think because there's at any one time I think there's a shit ton of dudes that fit this profile.
That's what I'm saying. It's just kind of which is scary, but it's just like there's a lot of dudes like teenage guys
that do this shit
that say the shit, and 99% of them are just trying to be edgelords, like I said, and
they outgrow it. Nothing happens.
But you never know.
Yeah, I mean, he was...
Which one's actually going to do it?
A lot of the stuff he was doing in terms of just like with firearms and stuff was just similar to... Actually, I was doing what in other cultures would probably be even more suspicious. I mean, I got my first fucking rifle at about 10, and it was a Remington Nylon 66. Fucking 22 caliber semi-automatic carbine. Had that... And when we went out camping or I'd go out into the woods out in Mississippi and I'd shoot that thing. Shoot lizards and cans and shit. And that was just normal for the 70s. And I wanted all kinds of military stuff when I was 17, 18, 19. I was in Brazil, though, at the time. And then ended up in Detroit. And fucking things like AR-15s and AKs were expensive, An AR-15 was almost $1,000 back then. They're much cheaper now.
Well, not the one he bought.
Yeah, well, he bought a Daniel Defense, which is kind of like a premium build, and I think overpriced. Well, it depends on what it is. Some of them cold hammer forged barreled chrome line, but the average person doesn't need that in terms of quality. You don't need that much quality. It's just you're for home defense. You're not going to do a whole lot of shooting. You're not special forces and shit. So funny these guys want to buy these fucking weapons rated good enough to serve in special forces. As special forces standards, and you look at the dude and he's overweight and he's not special forces standards. He will never put that weapon through the abuse some guy in fucking Delta Force is going to put through.
Well, that's why he wants it, because it's like badass. It'll make him a badass.
Yeah, that's not what happens.
Well, no, of course not.
If you can be soft as fucking butter and I can give you the fucking weapon of a Delta Force guy, guess what? You're soft as fucking butter. I can give that Delta Force guy just a fucking bottom of the barrel fucking fucking Egyptian Mahdi AK, and he's a fucking badass with it. He can run that fucking gun. It's the man and his skills and his determination. And as long as that weapon's functional, he can go into combat. He doesn't need any of these fucking fancy weapons and shit. Being dependent on fancy shit is a weakness. You should be able to do well with anything. But so it's funny. He was buying red dot sights. He bought a red dot sight. He was buying a bunch of magazines, and this is before he turned 18. But he's getting ready to buy his AR. That's not that unusual. Lots of young guys are doing that, dreaming when they're old enough to get their first rifle here, and they're buying accessories for it. But it's not nefarious. It's just they want to go to the range and shoot, and they want to get skills, and some of those guys also have interest in becoming military and law enforcement. That's where we come from. We come from backgrounds like that. This dude here, there may be a lot of guys that fit this profile. Most of them, they outgrow it. But this dude here was a particular weirdo, not normal.
Yeah, it wasn't just the fact that
he's buying this
stuff and wore black and stuff. Like he was threatening people. Yeah. He was having like a timeline of like, oh, I'm gonna do this like soon, and I'm gonna do like he was actually talking about
he's
that.
He's doing what's called like psychotic ideation. He's fantasizing about what he's gonna do.
Which that's a level above.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean.
And like people aren't really taking it seriously. And I think
so like, oh, whatever.
And I think there are losers out there that fucking talk about it, but then never do it.
Yeah, of course there are. And like I said, that's the vast majority, thankfully.
I think the vast majority of them chicken out. It's just a fantasy. It's a power fantasy. But then they don't want to die. See? Because you can't get away with this and live. You're gonna be killed. The fucking tactical response team's gonna show up and they're gonna fucking lay you low. You're going to take lead. That's what's going to happen.
Well, he wanted to.
Yeah, that's what. But most of the shooters don't.
Yeah, this guy absolutely did.
Most of these dudes thinking about this are having a power fantasy, and somehow they emerge the winner. You're never going to emerge the winner out of something like that. You're going to be fucking outnumbered. They're going to be killed. Yeah. So it can only be a fucking suicide attack. And that weeds a lot of them out right there.
Yeah, but like I said, this guy did seem to understand that.
He was a weed,
and was okay with that.
Yeah, he was an outlier.
Yeah, because he was for sure like suicidal. But yeah, so even though there were obvious red flags you could probably see from space, I think because it was kind of fragmented, like not everybody had the full picture. You know what I mean? Nothing was really done about it. You know what I mean? Like he had even tried to get, like before he was legal age, he even tried to get his sister to buy a gun for him and somebody else, like another relative, like his uncle or something like that. And both of them said no, because that's...
Dude, couldn't trust him.
Yeah, they knew. They were just like, I'd rather not. Probably the right decision. But, because he didn't want to wait. But he bought other things. Like you said, he bought a red dot,
red dot
scope and things and other things like that.
Yeah, it was red dot sight.
That was that was legal for him to buy, like getting ready for it. You know what I mean? When he was old enough. So early 2022, like I said, him and his mom never really got along. But at this particular time, they had like a really huge fight. And he was just calling her bitch this and bitch that. And he, for whatever reason, he decided he was going to post the confrontation on Instagram. And like, he made a video of it. I'm not sure if he actually just decided, I'm going to film this fight after it happened, or if he just, started the fight, like so he could put it on there and it's like, look what a bitch my mom is. I don't know. But so after this point, like after this big blow up, he actually ended up moving in with his grandmother. Now his grandmother only lived a couple of blocks away from Robb Elementary School, where the shooting would eventually take place. Now, the house was kind of small, and one of his relatives, I think it was a cousin or something like that, like was already living there, like in the spare room. So he didn't have a room. Like he basically just slept in the living room. And, it wasn't a great situation. He talked about, wanting to die by the time he was 18. He talked about, I'm not going to be around much longer. It seems like he started self-harming. Like his dad did see him and said that he had like cuts on his face, and like even like friends or classmates said that he just said I did it to myself or whatever. So he was cutting, and the thing about it is that a couple of his relatives did actually try to intervene when he had these suicidal thoughts, or like when he said stuff about it. And on a couple different occasions, like two different relatives like talked to him and thought that they had gotten through to him. Like, oh man, don't do that. It's like, you're so young, you have your whole life ahead of you, blah, 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 or whatever it was they said. And they thought that it was all sorted out and that he was going to be okay. You know what I mean? But I guess he was just kind of stringing them along, perhaps. So he turned 18 on May 16th, 2022, which was only 8 days before the shooting. So in Texas at that time, you could purchase rifles when you turned 18. So within a few days, he had actually saved up more than $5,000, like in his account, just from working with his grandfather and working at Wendy's and shit like that. Because like I said, he didn't really have any expenses, so he just socked all his money away. And he immediately like went and dropped more than $2,000 on two different AR-15 style rifles. The first one was one he had been wanting for a long time, which was like...
It was a Daniel Defense,
yeah. Actually, that one might have been like more than $2,000 all by itself.
It was like $2,500.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of money.
Yeah, it was some kind of deluxe AR-15 with a bunch of shit he couldn't use. He didn't know how to use a weapon. He never shot.
Yeah, it seemed like he did research like some shooting ranges and stuff, but he never went.
So... usually with something like Daniel Defense, it's all premium components, and the assembly is all hand done, and it's done to spec, and it's correct, so nothing comes loose on you. It's something any good armorer can do, but there's a lot of people that don't know how to put an AR-15 together, how to torque things to spec. It's an easily assembly process, though. Hardest thing is get the barrel in the upper receiver. Rest of it's all pretty much by hand. You can tap some things in, gas tubes and shit, roll pins. But it's like It's probably going to be fucking cold, hammer forged barrel, fucking chrome lined. And, you know, you can put thousands and thousands of rounds through the thing at full auto rate and have, you know, less barrel wear than it would be on something else, which the guys will spend all this extra money on shit that they're never really going to utilize. And it's stuff that we didn't even, in the military, really didn't utilize that much, you know. Like, you know, yeah, you could get a lot of full auto fire on them, but what do you care that you can get 6,000 rounds of full auto fire out of there? I mean, you could have a much cheaper barrel and just change it every fucking 2,000 rounds for $100. You know, just keep putting new barrels in them, throw them away. They're disposable. Everything that is military is disposable, including the men. The men are disposable. That weapon is disposable, and so are you. The dudes wielding them are just as disposable as the weapons. So, but these guys grew up playing video games. They don't know the reality of warfare. And they say, well, when I was playing that video game, I must have fired 7,000 rounds to complete that level. So I'm going to fucking fire 7,000 rounds if I ever get into a firefight. No, you're not. You'd be lucky to get a mag 30 rounds out before somebody else kills you. That's probably, you know. And you can't carry 7,000 rounds. You can only carry about 7 to 12 magazines of 30-round magazines. All this shit weighs the stuff. You can't carry all that weight. It's a contact sport like football. You're running and climbing and jumping and fucking combat rolling and jumping up on top of fucking vehicles and jumping down. And you got all this fucking weight. You're carrying food and all kinds of stuff with you, and water, camping equipment, you know, if you're in the airborne infantry, you know, because you're living out of a rucksack. And you can't carry all that shit with you. You know, so it's just these guys have this fantasy about what it's like. You know, most dudes are fucking killed in their first engagement in a real war, like a World War II style shit, or what's happening in Afghanistan, or not Afghanistan, Ukraine. If you're spotted, you're killed. Usually a drone sees you and you're just killed. You know, guns aren't even in play. You get hit by a quadcopter now with an explosive charge on it. That's how a lot of them are dying. So, you know, your little fucking aim point and red dot scope shit, that none of that shit's gonna matter in a real war, because it's just wars of attrition. If you're seen, you're killed by some kind of a remote weapon. But yeah, I just telling you why. I don't know why he's buying this shit. It's because
like I said, it's
the internet told him to buy it.
From playing video games.
Playing video games, yeah,
that's what it was.
Playing video games. So he gets the best one according to the internet and based on and video game standards that he's learned. He thinks it's gonna be like a video game. It's not.
Xanada said he could have moved away and started a new life with that $5,000. That's what Tom said.
I said that. You got that right.
It's like now Camp Guy said $5,000 isn't very much. That's true.
For a kid though.
For a kid, it would only last a couple months, but you could get your own kind of shitty apartment. You could, and if you had like a steady job, you could at least have something going on instead of doing this shit.
He and some other dude that had to skip town could have pooled their money together and moved a couple towns away and got an apartment and got a job and got some girlfriends and fucking had a good couple years, and then they would have fucking grown a little bit more, maybe gone off into the service or something, and have some fun, make a lot more friends. It's just the dude didn't have any good influences in his life. Nobody fucking snapped him out of it, and he was just putting himself digging that hole deeper and deeper with his activity, with his actions. People just liked him less and less. You know?
Yeah, and it just kind of became a feedback loop, I guess.
Yep.
But yeah, so he spent almost his entire savings, which was over $5,000, on the 2 rifles, all the ammunition. He bought a fuck ton of ammunition, and just some random other shit. I think he ended up having like $200 left in his account or something like that. Like after
he bought 2 AR-15s. The other one he bought was Smith & Wesson. Smith & Wesson, an MP. I think it's called an M&P or something. It's okay. That was good enough. What he had. That's like a $400 rifle, $450. And that was an AR-15 that is good enough. He didn't have to spend $2,500 on the other one. You know what I mean? For instance, that Smith & Wesson is usually the standard patrol weapon that a cop would have. That's what you put in a patrol car nowadays. You know, and fucking it's a good beater that could go into military service in the infantry, as long as you didn't have to depend on it for a lot of full auto fire. That'd work fine in service. But the But he was listening to the video, and I don't know why he wanted two, and he was carrying two around. I think Jen said video games. I mentioned. I think he imagined him going through this shooting situation with an AR-15 in each hand and spraying down crowds of people like something out of Doom or one of these video games. That's what I think he's. But that's totally impractical. You can't reload anything, and that's a lot of bulk. You know, too many controls, and you'll actually hit less because you can't concentrate on one set of sights. You know, like you would just. But for some reason, he bought two.
And only used one. Because he could.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just left the other one in the car.
Yeah, left the other one there. I think he was just. He thought he was going to go in there dual wielding like in a video game.
Yeah, well, that's not what happened. No. But he certainly did enough damage with just that one. But
he would have done less damage with two.
But yeah, so yeah, where was I? So he spent like pretty much all his money. They did a background check, obviously, but he didn't have a criminal record, so nothing came up. The guy that sold him the guns said that he didn't seem weird, although some of the other customers thought that he did. And they actually, I'm not sure because the laws are different for every state, but usually if you buy like an AR like that, they have to report it like to the federal government, but apparently they didn't report it to local law enforcement, so like nothing pinged. Now his grandmother, whose house he was living in, and the cousin that was also staying there was like, we don't really want the guns in the house, and so he actually stored it at his uncle's house. But I think he brought it back to his grandmother's house and like hid it outside or something like without her knowing.
I think it's because his mom was a felon.
Well, he didn't live with his mom anymore. He lived with his grandma.
That's right. And he had a bad relationship with his grandma, so his grandma didn't want guns in the house.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think the relationship with his grandma was as bad, but it deteriorated quickly, as we'll see.
She trusted him.
Well, for good reason, it appears. So like I said, it did seem like he looked up some shooting ranges, like he was going to go practice with it and stuff, but I don't think he ever went. So it's possible that he never really even shot it before he did what he did. Now, around this same time, because like I said, this is only like a few days until the shooting, because it was only 8 days, like between his 18th birthday and the shooting. So his messages start getting a lot more explicit, and he starts referring to like essentially like a countdown. Oh, you'll see, or it's going to be this day or whatever. And he was just like, I'm going to be famous, watch the news, like you'll see me on there, all this other kind of stuff. And at least a couple of his friends or acquaintances interpreted that as he was going to shoot up a school or like do a mass murder, which indeed was what happened. But I don't know, like if anything like that, if any of these threats were reported, like nothing was done about it. Now, only a few days before, I think only a couple days before his birthday, actually, there had been another mass shooting. It wasn't a school. It was a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. And he was like fascinated with that and was like looking up shit about that. He also started hanging out with a younger relative of his who was still in elementary school. I think it was a cousin. And so he started hanging out with him and playing video games, and he was like prying, like kind of getting information out of him about Robb Elementary School. Like, oh, hey, like what, like, how does the lunch thing work? Like, and what time are the classes at? And like, how does all of it work? You know what I mean? So he was like trying to get reconnaissance info about the elementary school from a kid that was related to him that went there. And obviously the kid didn't really know anything was wrong, you know what I mean? He just told him all the information. So he was definitely asking about like schedules and stuff like that. And on the night before, he was sending messages to tomorrow something's gonna happen, like a big, so he was like planning up to it. Now the following morning, which was May 24th, I don't think he had planned to do this, but he got into an argument with his grandmother because apparently his grandmother was going to take him off of her cell phone plan. And so at the time that this argument occurred, Salvador was on talking online to this teenage girl he knew in Germany that he had talked to off and on. And he started saying shit like, oh, I've got an argument, like she's going to take me off the cell phone plan or something. This bitch right now, I got to deal with her. And he shot his grandmother in the face at about 11:21 a.m. And then he messaged the girl that he'd been talking to and said, I just shot my grandmother in the face and I'm going to go shoot up an elementary school right now, he said to her. And the girl, as you probably would, thought she was joking. Thought he was joking. So all she said was, cool. And you can see there's screenshots of like the text messages and shit like that. Now, his grandmother would ultimately survive. I don't believe she can talk anymore because her jaw and everything was all fucked up. But she did live. And she was able to get out of the house, and like the neighbors came and helped her, and obviously the ambulance came. Now, after he shot his grandma in the grandma's house, he stole his grandparents' truck, which I think was a Ford F-150. He did not have a driver's license, and indeed did not know how to drive. And you can tell that from the CCTV footage outside the school, because the truck comes barreling down the street next to the school and goes way into a fucking ditch, just bam. So hard that like two of the tires like came off. They were like horizontal, like that, like in the fucking ditch. He fucked that truck all up. Bitch could not drive. And like I said, it's all on video because there were cameras like outside the school. So you can see two guys coming toward the truck because they'd seen the crash, right? And they thought, oh shit, like let's go see if the driver is okay. So these two guys go over there, and Salvador gets out the truck and starts shooting at them. Like they were not hit, thankfully, because they were like, fuck that, and they just like ran the fuck away. And then someone who was looking out and saw the wreck like called 911 and said there was just a wreck near the school, and I see somebody like shooting, like there's an armed person. So Salvador, crosses the fence. He jumps over the fence, like he throws his backpack over. Like I said, you can see that on the CCTV footage also. And there was a coach outside who saw him. And so she alerted the school, saying, there's a guy out here with a gun. He's coming toward the school. Like, you initiate lockdown procedures because they have those. But for whatever reason, I think there were Wi-Fi connection issues, or people didn't understand, or people didn't get the message, or something like that. The lockdown was not done, at least entirely. I think a couple of rooms did lock down, but not everybody got the memo. So at about 11:33 in the morning, Salvador goes into the west building of the elementary school, through a door that was, the exterior door was closed but not locked. Now, I believe that these outer doors, because I think there was some shit later, like someone trying to blame a teacher for like leaving the door, like propping the door open or something like that. That was not the case. The doors actually could only be locked from the outside with a key, so you couldn't actually lock them from the inside. So he just walked right in. There is also footage from inside the school of him just like walking in with the gun. He only brought the expensive one, the one that was over $2,000, and he left the other $1,000 whatever one like just sitting by the truck that he crashed for whatever reason.
It was about 400.
Yeah,
about 400. The other one, the Smith.
Maybe the 1,000 or something, because they showed like all his receipts, because he uploaded all his receipts.
We bought a bunch of ammo.
Because I think he bought a bunch of ammo
too.
Because like I said, he spent like more than $5,000 like on all this stuff.
Yeah.
But
I think because that Daniel defense was over 2,000. I think, from what I remember, it was over $2,000 what he paid for. It was a real nice one. The M&P was kind of like an M4 clone made by Smith & Wesson. I think it's called an M&P. I don't remember the exact nomenclature they use. They're all just AR-15s. And it kind of looks like an M4 carbine. And I think that's only a $450 rifle. It's not that expensive. At least they are now, I think, about $450. They're good, though. They were good. Like I said, good enough for police duty, home defense. You could take that. That would survive military service when I was in the 101st Airborne Division. It wouldn't be full auto. It'd be semi-auto, and I carried the M16A2, and it wasn't full auto either. It was a 3-round burst, but we only used it on semi-auto. Delta and fucking SF, they had fucking full auto packages, and they only used them in semi-auto. I mean, they could trip it over to full auto if they wanted to. But all that full auto fucking fire, that's Vietnam and new shit they were doing in Afghanistan and the bullshit, the ways that they were fighting in Afghanistan. Just bullshit. None of that stuff is meant for sustained full auto fire anyway. You can burn down any weapon. You just keep feeding it ammo. It'll eventually fall apart. You'll burn that fucking gas tube out there eventually. And yeah, you're gonna have to swap a barrel. But for some reason, these guys on the internet they want a barrel that'll last fucking forever, Now, 5,000 rounds, they'll pay $1,000 for that barrel. I'm like, why? Just buy a bunch of fucking $200 barrels and burn through them, if that's what you're going to do. Swap the barrels out. It doesn't take long to swap a barrel off that upper receiver. You just need a vise and a little special thing to hold your fucking upper receiver and a fucking special wrench, barrel wrench. You get it off there, back on, make torque at the spec, and that's what all their unit armorers were doing. If you're such a badass that you're a commando and shit, fucking swap a barrel. Just get the tools to swap a barrel. Get a fucking torque wrench, dumbass. Everybody should, if you like the AR-15 that much, go through an armorer's course. That's all. You can learn it in a day.
Okay, so he's coming into school. Like I said, there's footage of him like grinning, carrying the one expensive gun, and he moves immediately to room 111 and 112, which were adjoined. Like they were outside doors, but they were connected in between like a door. And like I said, many people have speculated that this might have been one of the same classrooms that he had attended 4th grade in, because it's still a 4th grade classroom at this stage, but I'm not entirely sure if he did. But he seemed to specifically go for those 2 classrooms, because there were other classrooms along the hall and he didn't go in any of those. Now, I will note that it was near the end of the school year, and the kids had like an award ceremony like earlier in the morning, and so it was like a half day, it seemed like, kind of, but like, so some of the kids just went home, but there were still a lot of kids there. They were just kind of hanging out in the classrooms with their friends and like watching movies and stuff. So as bad as it was, like there could have been a lot more kids in there, but some of them had already gone home, because like I said, it was kind of toward the end of the year. Now there was also some shit, and we'll get into this in a minute. This is another thing that made me mad about the fucking police response to this, was that he went into, I believe he entered through room 111, and so people were complaining, and it's just like, well, why didn't they lock the door or something like that? It came to light later on that the lock on room 111 was broken, and that the teacher had complained multiple times, like, look, this lock is broken, we need somebody to fix it, I can't lock it, and it never got fixed. So he just like basically walked right in and started shooting. Most of his shots, like I said, so I will say that as ass as the police response was, some of the victims probably it would not have made a difference, because he did just walk in, and there is footage, you can see him just walk into the room and like puffs of smoke coming out. And so he just like walks in there and just starts, spraying the room with bullets. And most of the shots were fired in the opening minutes, like before the police got there. Like the police had actually first been called to the scene because of the wreck. Like somebody called, because they saw the truck like wreck into the ditch. And then somebody said, oh, we saw an armed shooter like walking. So they came kind of knowing what it was, but it was a clusterfuck. You know what I mean? So they think that he fired more than 100 rounds in the first few minutes, and probably about 142 like all together, like they later found out. As I mentioned at the beginning, which, we'll talk more about this, but 19 children were killed and 2 teachers were killed also, and there were also 18 people wounded. Now, the first officers showed up, responding to the 911 call within about 5 minutes. And there is ample footage of this. You can see exactly what's going on. So a bunch of them come in, like there's probably, 3, 4, 5 of them. And they come in, they got their vests on and shit. And then they come down the hallway and they go up to the door of the classroom, and Salvador fires through the door, it appears. 2 of the officers were hit, not with bullet fragments. I think they tried to romanticize it later and say, oh, but the bullet fragment got him in. It wasn't that. It was just like shit from the wall.
Wood fragments.
And wood fragments and like concrete fragments hit him in the head. Like he was bleeding and stuff, but it wasn't like a big deal. And so because he shot through the door and a couple of them thought they were hit, they retreated back down the hall. And after that happened, it seemed like, honestly, a lot of them just kind of stood around with their thumbs up their butts. The response really lost momentum at that stage.
I've seen this happen in training and actually in real situations in the U.S. Army. What ends up happening is the chain of command, the guys at the top, start to get fucking scared. All right, and their whole life's flashing before their eyes. And instead of their life, actually, that's not a good way to put it. Their whole career is flashing before their eyes. They're scared to death of making a mistake. And that causes them to make a shit ton of mistakes. Because they're like, well, what should I do? What orders should I give? I got to pay for my house. I'm sending my kids to college. I'm only a few years away from retirement. All this shit starts going through their head, and they stop thinking about the mission. They start thinking about their own fucking survival. The survival of their careers, and fucking they can't make the right call when they're in that. The whole mission starts bogging down, and usually what they do is they come up with some fucking cockamamie fucking idea, and they stick to that no matter what. They go back to their original idea, and that's what this dude does. He thinks he's got a guy just barricaded in there. That it's not an active shooter; it's an active shooter. Because they got living kids in there, some of them wounded and dying. So he starts biting for time. Well, we need more strength. We need to have special equipment. We need to do this and this and that. So he starts doubling down. We need to find
the keys, like the master keys.
Yeah, we need to find. We need to talk this guy out. So he starts doubling down on fucking stupid. No, just run in there, guns blazing, and kill that dude.
Well, I will note
that's what you do.
That they have training for active shooter situations.
Yeah.
And that's generally what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to like take the threat out as quickly as possible in an active shooter situation.
Yeah.
However, because of the clusterfuck surrounding this, it seemed like when they came in, even though the dude shot at them and they retreated, it seemed like they were kind of, one, there was nobody in charge really. Nobody took charge in any meaningful way. And they started treating it and talking about it as though it was a barricaded subject, as though
he's holding hostages.
Yeah, they seemed to be operating under the assumption, which I don't know why they would assume this, but they seemed to be operating under the assumption that he had barricaded himself in this room and there was no one else in there. Like that seemed to be what they thought at first. That there weren't any kids, because you could even see like a lot of the cops being like, are there even any kids in there? I don't hear anything. I don't hear any screaming. I said, yeah, because when there's an active shooter, these kids have drills, sadly. Yeah, and they tell you the first thing you do is be quiet and hide so the shooter cannot find you. So it's like, obviously the kids are not making noise. And so it seemed to be like there was all this misinformation going around. It's like, oh, it's kind of near the end of the school year. I don't think are there even any kids in there? I don't even hear anything. And so they're acting like the dude had just barricaded himself in this classroom by himself and then was just shooting at the cops. So they didn't really seem to have any sense of urgency. Like I said, I don't know why they would assume that. Because there were other like people telling them, yeah, there are kids in here.
Because that was the safest thing for them personally to assume.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to assume that they didn't have to go in there.
Yeah, because they could just dick around.
They wanted to put it on to other dudes. That's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, they absolutely didn't want to do that.
That's what they were doing. It's a form of cowardice.
Yeah, and they rightly got called out by like pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Like, after saying, like, what a bunch of fucking cowards.
Basic thing you have to know in rifle combat, fucking I'm a qualified infantryman for fucking 101st Airborne Division, fucking 1st 327, fucking Airborne Infantry, 1st and 506 Airborne Infantry. A hasty response is always better than a late response. In other words, you see them, don't go, oh, well, we got to plan. This might be a trap. Hold on, Elizabeth. No, they're there. Get them. Immediately attack. That will always be the default best thing to do. Because what's going to happen is you're going to back off of those dudes and let's come up with a plan. And those dudes are either, one, get away, and then they're going to kill some other people. Okay? Or two, they're fucking going to amass more strength. So when you finally go to attack them, now you're not fighting 5 guys, you're now fighting 50. Okay, that's what's going to happen. You see the enemy, you grab onto that belt buckle, you just start fucking them over. Just work them over. Just kill them. And you just maximum violence and aggression on the objective. In other words, you're trying to make as many physical and psychological casualties on the enemies as quickly as you possibly can, because you're trying to rout them. You're trying to get them to run, and they're much easier to kill when they're running, because they're not shooting at you. You're now shooting them in the back. So this is a contact sport that involves firearms. All right, it doesn't involve a lot of planning. It's a lot of instinct and fighting. Just like everybody got a plan until they get punched in the fucking face. Well, gunfights are just like that. It's just like getting punched in the face. It's just that instead of gloves, it's fucking guns and bullets. It's the same rules, though. It's the same basic concept. It's fighting. So, no, the first thing, one dude, his wife was in there. And
I'll get to that.
He wanted to charge right in. That was the only right man. Yeah, just charge right in there. That dude alone probably could have killed that guy. And it would have been over.
Well, I'll note, too, I think I forgot to mention, but when Salvador was still outside the school, like before he went in, like one cop saw him and said, can I take him out? And the other cop said no. Yeah. Like
stupid.
He would have saved all those people if he'd have just plugged him right then before he went in.
They got wounded kids in there bleeding to death, dying. You got to get him fast.
Like I said, it would have been ideal if that dude actually just could have shot him before he even went in the school, and he wouldn't have shot anybody.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that.
And the more you think about it,
for whatever reason.
The more you think about it, the more painful it's going to be, and the more of a coward you're going to be. You just fucking grab your fucking weapon and fucking run guns blazing. That's what and all
like
your buddies.
I said, there was only one of him.
Yeah.
And he didn't have body armor. He didn't have
body armor. And if you had 4 dudes forcing their way, guns blazing through that door, they would have overwhelmed that kid easily and just cut him to ribbons. They could have done that with pistols. And they were wearing body armor. Yeah, you'd have got shot up in your legs and shit, but you got fucking instant. All the medics are right there.
Yeah.
The chances of him getting a lethal fucking instant kill on you are fucking low. Especially if they had helmets. I would have grabbed a fucking K-pop, put a helmet on real quick. Yeah.
But like I said,
you got to overcome all that shit. You can't be a coward. If this is your job, you have chosen to live by the sword when you pick up a gun for a living. When you choose to live by the sword, you are choosing to die by the sword. You're going to be a pussy when it's your time? No. You got to do it.
Especially saving children.
You're saving children,
for Christ's
sake.
Exactly.
They
couldn't even get their fat asses in there.
So it's not just you. Yeah, they're overweight. They're overweight, and I can tell by their moving. They're not moving with any confidence. They're scared. Because they're used to writing tickets and shit. And walking around in uniforms with fucking holsters, Yeah. The time came, and very few of them were stepping up. Just the guys that had something to lose. Like, dude was going to lose his wife. Did lose his wife. She died.
Yeah, so, yeah.
He could have run in there alone and had a great chance of killing that kid. Even just pistol versus rifle. Because he was wearing body armor. He could have taken a couple rounds to the chest, and those plates would have stopped it. And I guarantee you that skinny little kid couldn't take a 9mm round to the chest.
Well, yeah, he didn't have anything. He didn't have any body armor.
He had to put his pussy ass down quick.
Well, like I said, that's what they should have done.
Yeah.
Like I said, some of the children, I admit, were killed before the police got there.
But there were some of them in there dying.
Were some that were still alive.
Yeah.
So, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
So I think the main decision that caused all the cascading failures was the insistence on the dude who later said that he wasn't in charge. He's the one that's, up for trial. Like I'll get to his name in a minute. I can't really remember what it is at the moment, but it's in my notes. Arredondo, I think his name is. Pete Arredondo, that's his name. So he basically was saying and trying to convey the information that the dude was like barricaded in there, and it's like they were just kind of like, well, there are kids in there, I don't know, you know what I mean, like they were just standing around like, so the fact that he was like barricaded subject rather than active shooter, so they basically, that gave them an excuse to just kind of stand around with their thumbs up their butts and not do shit. And they're just like, well, we need a negotiator, we need master keys so we can get in the room, which wasn't locked. They didn't even try the fucking handle. Like the door wasn't locked, you know what I mean? They didn't even try it. And so he's trying master keys, like he gets keys and he's trying them on other doors and shit, like he was just farting around, you know what I mean? It was horrible. So more officers from different local, state, federal agencies show up. I think they ended up with almost 400 law enforcement guys. And like I said, most of them were just kind of standing around. Like a lot of them didn't know what the fuck was going on. There was like no one in charge. There was horrible, terrible communication. Arredondo didn't even have his radio. Like they asked him why it's like he didn't have his radio. He was just like, oh, I thought it would slow me down, or, it bumps into me when I run or something like that. It's like he had his cell phone though. It's just like, I don't know. It was fucking crazy. So they're waiting around. We're waiting around for master keys. We're waiting around for shields because the dude has an AR, like, because they saw the spent casings in the hallway. And meanwhile, while all these dudes are fucking standing around with all this, firepower, people are calling 911, like, including little kids, being like, hey, can you please, like, get in here and help us? Like we pay you to do. So 11:40 a.m., a teacher in a different room 102, she called 911. She had been trying to call like 3 times and she couldn't get through. And she said that she could hear gunshots in a classroom nearby. Like she was down the hall a little bit. So they did finally put the school in lockdown at 11:43 because of the gunshot. But this is really weird. I will note that the recorded phone message, because the parents, they got a recorded phone message from the school, and it went out to them, and it basically said the school was in lockdown because of a shooter in the area. It didn't really specify that the shooter was in the actual school. And the message, I believe, also said that the students and teachers were safe, which was 100% not true. And there was no way that they could know that information. So I guess they were just trying to like chill the parents out, but obviously that did not work. You know what I mean? So over the next 40 minutes or so, more and more officers are showing up. And like I said, they're all just kind of standing around in the hall. And they just mostly seem to kind of wander around, clearly not knowing what was going on. Is there even any kids in there? Like, it's really quiet. They didn't hear any screaming, like I said. Now, they were looking for the master keys. Like I said, the door wasn't even locked. They didn't even try it. They brought in shields and shit, but they were still kind of standing around. So what Tom was referring to before, one of the responding officers was married to one of the teachers who was in one of the rooms that Salvador had targeted. Spoiler alert, she subsequently was one of the ones that died. Now, he seemed to be the only one that just wanted, fuck it, let's go in there. He wanted to breach the classroom, but was very clearly prevented from doing so.
You see it on video.
Because his wife, she was shot in the room, and she was texting him or on the thing, and he was looking at the text. She says she's shot. Like,
they tell him to stand down. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah, like, his name is Ruben Ruiz.
That's the motherfucker you picked to lead the fucking charge.
Yeah, just lead it. His wife's in there.
Put him on point. Says you're gonna save your wife. We're gonna put 4 guys behind you.
Yeah.
Here's a fucking shield. Go get her.
Yeah.
That's the one you want. Because he's got something to lose and something to gain.
Yeah.
And he'll go in there, guns blazing, and the dudes will be right behind him. Because they're gonna be encouraged by his boldness. Yeah, but these dudes don't know how to fight. They know how to write tickets, but they don't know how to fight. All right? It's a shame. Maybe I'm privileged. I was in some of the best infantry units in the fucking world. That's just what we did, in the 101st. But it's frustrating to see it because you got kids' lives in the balance. They're dying from blood loss and shit. 77 minutes of inaction against one weakling. One coward with an AR. A puny little AR. It's not even a powerful weapon. It's a standard individual weapon for any army. It's not a 50 BMG. It's not a fucking 7.62 fucking, battle rifle. It's not a sniper rifle. It's not even a shotgun. It's a little fucking AR-15. 22 caliber projectiles cooking out of there pretty fast. It's deadly. But come on. Stack 5 guys up against him. And watch that, but he'll fucking panic. And he'll miss. Some people get hit arms, legs, maybe. You'll get him. You'll overwhelm him. Because that you put that kid to the test. You'll see. He would have failed, which that's what happened. They charged him and killed him. Frustrating.
Well, yeah, I haven't got halfway through yet.
I'm just getting mad. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, they know what happens.
You know what I mean?
He dies.
So yeah. So okay, where was I? Okay. So Ruiz, like I said, his wife has texted him and said, he's coming down the hall. You can see it, like I said, on the body cams. And he's coming down the hall. He said, "That's my wife's classroom," and she says she's shot. And then the guys basically put their hand on his shoulder. They took his gun away and went him down the hall. And then later on, they asked one of the dudes that was outside, it's "Why the fuck did you do that?" And he was just kind of "Well, we just didn't want him rushing in there and getting killed." They're "You're all supposed to be rushing in there. Let him do it." It's for Christ's sake, everyone's just standing. And the crazy thing about it is that while they'd all been dicking around for however long, I think it was Arredondo that said at some point, it's people are going to wonder later, why we took so long or something like that. So they were aware that they were probably not doing what they were supposed to be doing, but that didn't light a fire under the ass. You know what I mean? So yeah. I will also note that Ruiz's wife, Eva Mireles, the teacher, she had been shot. She was still alive when the officers finally fucking breached the classroom. However, she died while she was being transported to the hospital. Had they saved her, because she was shot as soon as Salvador got in there. She was one of the first people that he shot. And she was just laying there bleeding out for an hour and a half. And they probably could have saved her had they gotten there earlier. But no, that's not what happened. There were reports, and I think that even the one that I watched on Dire Trip said this too. There were reports that Ruben Ruiz himself died of a heart attack 2 days after the shooting at a memorial for the victims. But as far as I could determine, those reports are not true. He did actually resign from the force in disgust about 6 months after the incident and largely stayed out of the public eye. So I think kind of a legend sprung up that he had actually died of a broken heart or whatever, which I wouldn't blame the guy, but I think he's still alive. But he did quit though. Also during this time, and this right here, they have all these 911 calls recorded, and this was the part that that really fucking got to me. So also during this time, when the cops were all standing around doing fuck all, there were at least two little girls. I think one little girl tried to call 911 and he heard her and shot her dead. But there were at least 2 other little girls trapped inside the classrooms that were repeatedly calling 911 requesting help. And it was sad because they could hear the cops. The cops were right out in the hallway, right? So they could hear them talking and shuffling around out there and stuff like that. And so this little girl keeps calling 911. It's where, how far away are they? Where are they? The little girl who kind of got, I don't want to say famous necessarily, but the one that was best known for making these series of 911 calls, I think it was 4 or 5 different calls, from inside classroom 112, was named Chloe Torres. She was, I believe, 10 years old at the time of the shooting, and was probably a million times braver than any of the cops that showed up that day, gonna say. Using her teacher's phone, she got the bloody phone from the teacher and made multiple calls to 911 while hiding with her classmates. Her and this other little girl, I think, smeared themselves with her classmates' blood and played dead. And then when he would go, because it was 2 classrooms that were connected, so when he would go into the other room, she would you could hear that she was trying to keep her voice down. You know what I mean? So she would call. So she called the first time at 12:10, and she said, "I'm in classroom. What she's like, what room is it? And she's like, it's 112. And she's like, please hurry. There's a lot of dead bodies, she says. And I will note that the dude, when he walked in and sprayed when the cops finally came in the room and saw the carnage, a lot of them had to run out and throw up. They said because the kids had, like, some of the kids, this is horrible, but
they're blown apart.
They were just blown apart.
Yeah,
like their heads were blown off.
He was shooting them at close range. And
it was just it was a bloodbath. And this little girl, I mean, you can tell she's really scared, but she's like trying to be quiet, but she's remarkably chill, like, you know, saying there's a lot of dead bodies. So she calls back 3 minutes later and she says, you know, that there's a bunch of victims in here. And then she calls back again and she says, I think there's 8 or 9 people that are still alive. They're still alive in here. Now another student in the adjoining classroom, 111, also briefly called 911 but hung up. Like, another kid told him to shut up. Chloe called again at about 12:43 and she's like, can you send the police now? Like, how far away are they? You know what I mean? Like, where are they? So this little girl is in there playing dead and like calling, just like, where are the fucking cops? You know what I mean? And it's just heartbreaking. It's fucking heartbreaking listening to her. And this got me, like, when I was watching this. She says she knew how to call 911 from a locked phone, because it was her teacher's phone, because her dad's phone worked the same way, so she figured it out. She also said, and this is a quote, I'm telling everybody to be quiet, but nobody is listening to me. I understand what to do in these situations. My dad taught me when I was a little girl. Send help for my teachers. They're still alive, but they're shot. The fact that she knew, her dad, it turns out, Ruben Torres, was a Marine, or a former Marine. And he said that because school shootings are sadly, you know, so common, and they have drills for them at school, that he had taught his kids what to do in those situations. You have to stay calm and, you know, call 911 and, you know, tell them all this other stuff. So the fact that she said that on the phone was just, it was just horrible that she said that. She did live. She didn't die. Her and her friend that were hiding in the dead bodies, they actually did survive. But, you know, most of their friends did not. And I can't imagine what that little girl saw. Like, she had some trouble. I think she's okay now, but like, she went through like some therapy and shit because of what she saw. So yeah. Now the cops did, after far too long a time, figure out that, there are kids in the other rooms where the shooter is not, and maybe we should evacuate those kids, like, out the windows or whatever. So there is some footage of them, like the ones that are outside, like pulling kids out of the windows, because like, you know, come on, get out of here, and like putting them on buses and stuff like that. But like I said, it took them way fucking longer to figure out that, oh hey, maybe there's other kids in the school and we should get them all out of here. That said, I do kind of feel like that was something that, you know, on its face, that's a good thing. But I think it was like another thing that was, oh, let's do that, and that'll be a good thing, instead of going into the room where the shooter is and like taking him out, which is what they should have been doing. I will also note here that Salvador, on more than one occasion, on several occasions, as a matter of fact, taunted the police to come in and get him, and seemed to be getting bored and frustrated that they were not coming in. What does that tell you? That the fucking shooter was so bored waiting for the cops to come in that he was just fucking around in there. He thought they were going to come in and he was going to go out in a blaze of glory, I guess. That's what he wanted. And they didn't come in and he couldn't figure it out. And like, they were trying to, like, Arredondo was trying to like negotiate with him. So he kept saying, like, you know, Ramos. They knew who it was at this point because, look, a bunch of his relatives had called because, you know, he shot his grandma.
His mama was in there and knew who he was. Says, you need to kill him.
That was his cousin or his aunt or something. Okay. Like, his mom didn't say that.
Was his mom? Okay, it was cousin.
I don't think his mom showed up. But yeah, that was his aunt or something like that. It's like, you get in there and kill him. Get in there and kill him. Yeah. That's my nephew. Yeah. Like she said. And she was freaking out. She was just like, get in there and kill him. Like, why aren't you in there? Yeah. She was like outside. So yeah, like several of the relatives had called. He's like, yeah, that's my nephew, because he'd shot the grandma. So they knew who it was. So Arredondo is like out there just going, Ramos, like, talk to me. And he, Ramos would never answer. Like, Salvador would never answer him. but he just kept calling him, like talking to him. And it's like, oh, we need a negotiator. No, you don't. You need to get the fuck in there and just shoot the dude. But they never did.
Yeah, you negotiate with a dude who hasn't shot anyone yet. That's who you're negotiating.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. That's why he was going around, like he was doing the barricaded suspect protocol instead of the active shooter protocol. Yeah. And I think, I don't know what was going through the dude's head. I think that he probably knew. I mean, he knew at this point that there were dead and wounded kids in there. But I think he
was doubling down on his
he had decided that it's like, oh, well, it's barricaded suspects, so I'm just going with that protocol because that, that means I don't have to really do anything that will endanger my own life.
I think that's what it is.
I think was exactly what it is.
He's trying to dictate to other people what reality is.
Yeah.
But that's not, the shooter wasn't going along with that. And that's not what the reality was.
Yeah.
He was trying to fucking flip the script on reality.
And I mean, I'll note that it was several minutes that, like, one of the officers, Ruiz, like, he knew his wife was shot in there. And then they had those 911 calls. And then, like, they didn't even, like, it seemed like some of them knew about the 911 calls and some of them didn't. Like, no one was communicating with anybody. It's like no one was in charge. It's just like,
stupidest thing
ever. Like, everybody was just standing around like, what's going on? Like, nobody knew what was going on. It was that cop ridiculous. Said, my wife's
in there shot. You put that man on point. You fucking get an assault team together. You go in there and he leads the charge. Yeah, that's the right man for the job.
Well, yeah, because he has skin in the game. He has something to lose.
Skin in the game. He's going to give a good performance. And if he pulls it off, he's a hero.
Yeah.
And that dude knows that. So, yeah. But no, he just walked away from a good entry man, a good point man right there.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to use the talent they had. They're dumb.
Yeah. Like
no animal instincts.
It just seemed like they had almost 400 dudes standing around and they were all just standing around doing nothing. Like, pretty much.
Wasted any talent they had, they were wasting it.
So, and like I said, Salvador didn't have any body armor on, despite some early reports that said that he did, but he didn't actually, they discovered later. So the cops did have vests. A few were heard saying that since the shooter had an AR, they would be able to simply shoot through the vests if they stormed the room and it'd be suicide. So we need to wait for better equipment, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, it seemed like all excuses, like because they didn't want to do it, essentially. So yeah, I'm also going to say this is also not great, and there's a lot of footage of this too, that the cops were essentially bullying the ones that were outside the school, were bullying the very distraught parents who had come to the school to try to find out if their children were safe, find out what the fuck was going on. They even tased a few of the parents, like handcuffed them to prevent them from going into the school. Another hero in this regard was a woman named Angeli Rose Gomez, and she was the mother of 2 boys at the school. Now, she heard about the shooting, like she was at work, like about 40 miles away, and she heard about the shooting and she drove her ass to the school, like as quickly as possible. As soon as she gets there, like there's a whole bunch of officers outside the school, parents are gathering there, there's all kind of altercations. Gomez said, why are you guys just standing around out here? Like, why don't you go in? And then they thought she was getting hostile or something like that. And they handcuffed her or detained her because she's like, well, I'll go in. And she started trying to get past the perimeter and they tried to detain her. But she knew a couple of the cops. They're like, no, man, just, don't do that or whatever. So they took the cuffs off of her and she took off. She like ran toward the school, climbed over the fence, and went into the area of the school where her kids' classrooms were and got her 2 kids out herself. Now, her kids were not in the room where the shooter was, but she was just like, fuck this noise, and she just like fucking ran in there. Her kids were younger. They were 2nd and 3rd grade, so they were in like a slightly different wing. So she just like went in there, and she didn't go through the hallway, but she was seen coming back out with her 2 kids while the officers were still fucking standing around. So like I said, she didn't actually go into the shooter's room, but she knew her kids were in the school, and she's just like, well, I'm going in there. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And she went in there.
She got to lose.
She went in there and got him.
Yeah. Motherly instincts, as I'm saying. It makes you so mad they didn't let that husband go and do what he was born to do, which is save his wife.
Yeah.
Fuck. And then he would have saved them kids, too.
Yeah.
Fucking stupid, man.
So they actually made a documentary about this woman called Uvalde Mom. And because man, she was not shy later on about telling the police what fucking cowards they were. And she also, according to her, and I believe it, I'm going to say, she stated the police tried to intimidate her after the shooting, like after she spoke out about their failures.
Yeah.
Like there were cop cars like parked in front of her house for hours, like with the lights going, pulling her over and like saying she was harboring illegal aliens, like shit like that. They brought back some bullshit like little charge she'd had from years ago and like trying to arrest her on that. And I will note that several of the other parents likewise complained that the cops had attempted to intimidate them in the aftermath of the shooting as well, especially the ones that were the most vocal about criticizing the police department for how useless they were. So around between 12:15 and 12:45, they get tactical teams assembling. Finally, BORTAC, the U.S. Border Patrol personnel, arrived on the scene. They get some ballistic shields and they get breaching tools, which, like I said, they didn't even fucking need because the door was not fucking locked. It was open the whole time. The lock didn't work. They didn't even check it. They didn't even turn the handle.
They should have known it was open because he was telling them to come in.
Yeah.
He's telling them to come in.
Like I said, it just seemed like excuses.
You don't need breaching. If you got 6 dudes in a stack, go up to the front of that door and all just start concentrating fire around that fucking doorknob, you'll blow that part of the door apart with 5.56. And then a second team comes and just fucking boom, hits it with a foot. They just come piling through. And the guys behind them fucking firing. You could chew through that door. Given it enough fucking time and enough ammunition, you could chew through any door. So, fuck breaching. What's he going to do about it that you're chewing through the door? Stand behind it and go, hey, stop shooting at the door. What's he going to do? He knows you're going to try to come in anyway. He's been telling you to come in.
He's been asking you to come in.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what the fuck are you doing out there? Come in and get me, he said.
Yeah. He told him it was open. Or he didn't say it was open. He told him to come in.
But like I said, it blows my mind that, like, Arredondo in particular was just like, oh, we're waiting for the keys. And then he would try the keys on, because of master key. And he's trying all these different keys on different doors. Nobody even thought to turn the fucking handle of 111. It wasn't locked. They could have just walked right in.
He was telling him to come in. That's funny. He was telling him to come in.
Salvador just walked right in. It wasn't locked. It wasn't able to be locked. It was broken.
Yeah.
So finally, at 12:50, BORTAC, the Border Patrol, did what the rest of the cops should have done as soon as they got there and stormed into the room. Salvador had been hiding in a closet and he jumped out and he did shoot at the cops. A couple of them were hit, but like they were just grazed. He didn't hit any of them like bad. I think one guy was sort of wounded, but that's it. But the guys just like lit him up.
Fucking laid him low.
Finally, after 77 long minutes.
Yeah.
I can't fucking believe it. And like a lot of people said too, like, cause there's a lot of documentaries, like PBS like did a couple really good ones about the timeline and about the aftermath. And a lot of people commented in the comment section is like, this documentary isn't even as long as the cops fucking waited to go in there. It's like, think about that for a second. So they finally shot and killed this motherfucker after 77 minutes.
You see how many times he was hit?
No, not that I saw.
Just basically he went down without incident.
Yeah, he just jumped out of the closet and they lit him up.
And it was just
like I said, he shot at them, and I think one of the officers was like mildly wounded, like a bullet grazed his arm or something, but that was it. Like he didn't get a good shot in.
That's what I would have predicted, just knowing his background and his
like I said, they could have done that like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, all he did is ask his mom, "Is he skilled with weapons?" Oh, he just got. He's a fucking sitting duck.
Yeah,
we're gonna kill this kid.
Yeah, just run in there. And
just run in there, fucking guns blazing. It'll overwhelm him. Numerical superiority and speed is how you get overwhelming force. You don't give them any time to think, and their instincts, they're not drilled enough to just have muscle memory to be able to concentrate fucking rapid fire onto oncoming multiple targets. They can't do that. You know, it's not in them. They haven't been working that gun long enough. It's not part of their nervous system. So you just shock him with a bunch of fucking targets coming at him blazing, and he overwhelms him. You know? I'm sure even video game guys probably know what I'm talking about. If a bunch of real powerful fucking enemies appear out of nowhere, right, there's nothing you can do. And don't even get a good hit on him because it just overwhelms you. And that's what they did to him. It's predictable.
So by the time they got their lazy asses in the room, 19 children were dead and 2 teachers were dead. Of the children killed, all 11 students that had been in room 111 were dead. So all of those kids got killed. Their teacher, Mr. Reyes, he was shot up pretty bad, but he survived. But all of his students died. Like I said, that wasn't all of the students in this class because some of them had already gone home because it was like a half day or whatever. But all 11 of his students that were there that day were killed. So he like lost all 11 of his students. And he actually spoke out. I saw like some extended interviews with him. He had he was shot in the left arm, which was real bad, like it fucked his arm all up. He was shot in the back. He was shot through the lung. He said that the dude, like when Salvador first came in, he shot him and he just fell to the floor. And then Salvador came and shot him again and then started shooting the kids. And at this point, Mr. Reyes knew that all the kids were dead. And so he just played dead for the rest of the time. And he said that when the cops didn't come in and Salvador was getting bored, Salvador was kind of like torturing him a little bit. Like he would like throw his own blood into his face and like threw his phone at him and shit like that while he was just laying there like playing dead. You know, so he knew that all the kids were dead though, and he just kind of laid there because he said the dude just came in and just fucking sprayed bullets, and that happened like immediately. So I don't think any of those kids could have been saved because Mr. Reyes said that that the dude came in, shot him, and then started shooting the kids. And he said if he missed the kids the first time, he went back and got them the second time. And he shot Mr. Reyes the second time too.
He was double tapping him.
Yeah. But Reyes survived. He was shot 5 or 6 times, but he lived. You know what I mean? So, when the DOJ did their investigation, they said that even though a lot of the kids were killed outright, like before the cops showed up, that there were many victims that were shot and maybe would have lived if the cops had done anything sooner.
Probably could have saved 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah, I mean, well, when the little girl called, she said there were 8 or 9 that were still alive in the room with her, which was 112. And there were some that survived in there. Like, she was not hurt. Like, it was fucked up because they had, like, footage of her and her little friend sitting on the bus, like, after they got everybody out. And she was just covered with blood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They blurred a lot of it out, but you could still tell. So I guess, you know, because obviously they killed the shooter at the scene and, you know, they couldn't ask him what his fucking deal was or anything like that. But I think all of the shit leading up to it was just kind of, you know, he just wanted to be famous. And he was fucked up and this was the way he was going to do it. And it was also pretty clear that he was suicidal and that he wanted the cops to kill him.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't try to get away. He didn't, you know, he repeatedly, like, told them to come in and get him. So I'm pretty sure he was just thinking he was going to fucking...
It's kind of like the same thing that happens in China with the knife attacks. The profile's a little bit different. It's usually older guys, older losers that didn't really get anything in life. Their careers didn't work out. They start feeling sorry for themselves and they start to want to commit in China, I think they call them like crimes against civilization or crimes against humanity type of thing. And it's a thing. It's a cultural thing. They get a kitchen knife and they break into like a kindergarten, and all their kindergartens and shit all have like huge fucking gates and walls around them now, bars, because they'll climb up and jump down and start killing the little kids. And they'll get a lot of them. And the same fucking clusterfuck police responses like this. And just, I've seen videos of it. It's just fucking pitiful. It's like the Keystone Cops. And they tend to get those guys alive, though. You know what I mean? And then the guys give up at the end. So when the police show up, and then they use it to grandstand in front of everybody else of how unfairly they were treated by life. So they try to turn it into a woe is me fest, and that's kind of what this is. Except that he didn't want to go to jail. That was his deal. So he decided that it was time for him to die, but he wanted people to feel sorry for him. That's why they do this.
Yeah, it's like I think they kind of want people to feel like they're justified. It's like, oh yeah, well, if you hadn't picked on that kid, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But like I said, how much was you really picked on?
It's a cry bully.
A lot of people are picked on, and they don't do shit like this. So
he was a cry bully and a edgelord grandstander, and he wanted to be famous like the other guys before. It's a cultural phenomenon, and I think it'll go out of style.
Yeah, eventually.
It's a fad more than anything else.
American Military 100 said how many people died again? 21. 19 children and 2 teachers. The kids were all 9, 10, and 11 years old. They were all 4th graders.
Eventually, some other dude's going to do something else you hadn't thought of. And that's going to end up being the next thing. Some kind of mass killing, but it'll be different.
So in April of 2025, so a little while later, city leaders in Uvalde approved $2 million settlement for the families of all 21 people killed. I believe they all got free scholarships and stuff like that too. Not like that was like for the survivors and stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. But I mean, it's better than nothing. But they changed some laws. I think they upped the age for buying at least that particular type of weapon up to 21 from 18, and
in that state, I would think.
Yeah, it was just Texas, and also they upped the training for active shooter duties. Like they have to do it every couple years, like so many hours or whatever. This was kind of infuriating also because before all of the body cam footage and shit leaked out, I feel like this was mostly the Texas Department of Public Safety. They put out this document. I think it was just 1 page, and it was called. I was like, how fucking Orwellian is this? It was called The Narrative. It's a little on the nose, and this was the story they were going with, for the media, to say what happened in the media. And predictably, it was really glazing the cops, really, really hard. They showed up within minutes. They took out the shooter. They did all this stuff, and it was really talking about what a good job they did. And they said, and I was like, okay, I see what they're doing. There's their actions saved over 500 people, and it's just well, who are they talking about? They got some of the kids out of the school, but it's really the kids that were in those 2 classrooms were the ones that were endangered. The kids in the other classrooms, they all got out safely. The gunman wasn't after them. He went in those 2 rooms and he didn't come out. You know what I mean? And he just shot everybody up in there. So I don't know if they mean the other students at the school or the people in the surrounding community that weren't in any particular danger. So they were trying to make it seem oh, they saved all these people, but I was just kind of I don't understand. But yeah, so they tried to make it sound super impressive. So that was kind of the narrative that they were going with for a couple of days, after the shooting. And then all the other shit started coming out. Like I said, all the body cam footage and the 911 calls and just other witness testimony and things like that. And so the narrative started quickly falling apart when people saw what actually happened, which is very, very clear from all of the fucking footage, that everyone stood around for more than an hour doing pretty much fuck all. So once that came out, obviously everyone was fucking enraged. The DOJ got involved and we're going to do their own independent review. And actually their report, which finds, not surprisingly, egregious failures at pretty much every fucking stage of this exercise, is considered the most accurate account because it takes him, because they even interviewed like all the cops, because I saw like clips of them interviewing the cops, and they obviously tried to make themselves, it just seemed like just a cavalcade of excuses, like why they didn't do. And I said, like, even on the body cam, you can hear Arredondo saying they're going to wonder why we didn't go in there, or why we're taking so long, or something along those lines. So they were aware, and like you could even hear some of the other cops at various times being like, why don't we go in there? We need to get in there. We need to get in there. And like he's like, well, we have to wait for the superior officer to approve that or say that or something like that. So it's just like everyone's just standing around like spare pricks in the wind, and it's like some of them did want to go in, but like they didn't want to. Nobody had the balls to just be like, fuck it, I'm just going. Like I don't care.
You lose your job.
Because then you lose your job. Well, it's like, well, surprise, you might fucking lose your job anyway. But so you know what I mean?
It was a paralyzed command. The guy in charge, a guy who did not understand what the application of force is about. They didn't know about force or power. Okay. Expertise is not power. Knowledge is not power. Fucking virtue is not power. Morality is not power. Power is power. All right. That's what power is. All right. Power is killing the enemy. You got to do that quick. And if you're going to live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. It's just, you got to go in there in a fucking cavalry charge, man. Kamikaze, and take the kid out. But you see, that sounds too primitive. It sounds too stupid. There must be an intelligent way out of that. Yeah. Go ahead and try to find an intelligent way out of a fucking fist fight. Find an intelligent way out of a fucking gunfight. I'd like that. That shit's so awesome. Think about it. Yeah, intelligence has nothing to do with it. Ferocity, balls, force. That's what does it.
So finally, after all of the DOJ report came out and everything like that, finally the DPS director, who at first, before he had all the information, was talking about, oh, the cops are heroes, blah, blah, blah. They saved all these kids, blah, blah, blah. But then when he found out what really happened, then he turned on him, you know what I mean? He called the response an abject failure, and singled out Arredondo particularly, telling him he had made terrible decisions and that there was no excuse for waiting out the hallway to confront the gunman. And he basically said Arredondo should have been the incident commander, because here's the thing. I kind of feel like Arredondo knew, because he said that he was the first one on scene. And generally, the protocol that they teach them for this situation is if you're the first one on the scene, you're the incident commander. So if he knew he was the first one on the scene, then he would have known he was the incident commander. But then later on, he was just saying, oh, well, I wasn't the incident commander. I never thought that. But then like in some of the footage, you can see him kind of like giving orders, sort of.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, which is it? Like, are you the incident commander or no? I feel like when he's trying to like cover his ass, he's just like, oh, well, I thought somebody else was in charge. Like I didn't consider myself the incident commander, even though he specifically said that he was sure he was the first one on the scene. But all he did, like pretty much the whole time, was look for keys, test the keys that he got like on this big ring, and say, oh, well, we need to get those kids out of those windows and stuff like that, and then dicked around in the hallway. Like basically that's all he did. So, and it wasn't just him, and I kind of feel like even, the DOJ report said, there were obviously multiple failures like across multiple agencies, and it wasn't just him, but I feel like he was the one that got most of the ire, because he was the one that was nominally supposed to be in charge, and a lot of his decisions, particularly his first decision of treating this as a barricaded subject rather than an active shooter situation, like led to the cascading failures like going forward. So he got like most of the blame. And June 22nd of 2022, he was placed on administrative leave. And then he was actually the cop for the school district, I guess. So the school board voted to terminate his employment as police chief. Now, interestingly, he had actually been elected to the Uvalde City Council only a couple weeks before the shooting happened. And they were like, well, he got elected, so we can't really say, no, you can't do it now. But we can't do the swearing in ceremony because everyone will come throw rocks at the dude probably. So they did the swearing in ceremony, but they did it like in secret. But then people found out about it later and they got really pissed, like, and I don't blame them. And then after that, like, he knew that there was like all this fucking, rancor in the community against him. So he's like, well, can I take a leave of absence? And they said no. So he actually resigned from the council because he knew that he was, being distracting or whatever. Now later, so all of these different, so he got examined by all these different bodies, and like I said, it wasn't just him, but he was kind of the guy that was made the poster boy for this whole situation. So for a couple of years after the shooting, a lot of people thought, well, none of the officers are going to face any criminal charges. Like, I think one female officer who never went inside, she was just outside. She got in trouble, or she got fired for saying on her body cam something along the lines of, like, what did she say exactly? It sounded bad. Like, she was just like, well, if it was my kids in there, I wouldn't be outside, that's for sure. Or implying that since it wasn't her kids, like, she didn't really give a shit.
Yeah.
So she got fired, but I think she got a job somewhere else, like in another city or something like that.
That might have been kind of like irony against the fucking these guys. Well, yeah, maybe she was being.
Yeah, it's like the way she said it, I was like, that does sound bad, but I don't know if it was like misinterpreted.
Might have been sarcasm.
Yeah, it might have been misinterpreted.
Guys are so slow
because the way she worded it, I was like, yeah, that sounds kind of shitty, but I'm not sure if that's what she was implying.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think she was making fun of the dudes, like, for not going in. It's like, hey, if that was my kids and I wouldn't be out here, that's for sure. Like, but I think they took it as though she was saying, oh, well, it's not my kids in there, so I don't care.
I think she was saying these motherfuckers aren't going in there because they're not their kids.
Yeah, but she got fired regardless for saying that. And like I said, she wasn't even in the building. She was out. She was one of the ones that was outside.
Yeah.
Like, helping get the kids out the windows. And then, so it was just kind of bullshit like that. And people were just like, is anybody going to face any consequences for this? Like, 2 years had gone by at this point. But finally, June 28th, 2024, the Uvalde County grand jury, or a Uvalde County grand jury rather, indicted Arredondo. 10 felony counts of child endangerment, and he's like the only one. There was one other guy that had 29 charges, also related to child endangerment. I can't remember what his name was, but charges were dismissed. So Arredondo is pretty much the only one that's going to probably see any consequences. So as of this live stream in late July of 2026, his criminal case is pending. So they don't know I'm not really sure what kind of he's in jail, but I'm not really sure what kind of sentence he's looking at for that. Adrian Gonzalez was the other guy's name. 29 charges of child endangerment, but they were all dismissed. So Arredondo, if one guy had to take the fall for this, he's probably the best one to do it, because he's all over these fucking footage, man, and you can tell
doing the wrong thing
like at pretty much every turn.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem like a bad guy necessarily. It's just that
he's not aggressive enough for that
he
job.
Wasn't. Yeah, he really it seemed like a lot of it stemmed from cowardice. Like, they just didn't want to go in there because they thought, well, the dude's just gonna like fucking plug us all as soon as we walk in there, and they didn't want to do that. So I think, whether consciously or unconsciously, he just made the decision, oh, well, the guy must just be in there by himself. It's a barricaded subject, so we just have to wait until we get better equipment. So he just kept like kicking the can down the road so he wouldn't have to deal with it, it seemed like.
Also like, maybe somebody else will come take over for me. Maybe somebody will save me from these difficult fucking, difficult
That's what
choices.
It seemed like to me, that he was just...
I can't send my guys in there. They'll get killed and I'll get in trouble. He's not aggressive enough for the fucking job.
Yeah, and a lot of people said that it's just kind of like
promoted
you can't...
above his station.
And they had been trained for this. They do give them active shooter training.
Yeah, but he didn't want to see that.
But he didn't want to do it.
Yeah. Not aggressive enough.
And I kind of feel like every decision that he made like I said, whether consciously or unconsciously, was to keep him from having to do anything.
A real leader would have been in the stack on that fucking assault group.
Well, yeah, that's
what in that assault group.
Like I said, that's what they should have done.
Go ahead, man. I'm going in there with you. Let's go. Let's go.
And okay. I will note, in other active shooter situations, that's generally what they do. That's what they're trained to do. Like I said, you are supposed to get in there and neutralize the threat as quickly as possible. You just storm the fuck in there. That's what you do. But the fact that they didn't do that, that's why the dude's in jail right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he got to be in jail to be serve as an example.
Yeah.
To the other cops, that fucking you let cowardice let all these kids die, you're gonna go to jail. Yeah, that's the way I would do it. Yeah.
I mean,
and that adds motivation, proper motivation to your police force.
Yeah, it's like, don't fucking do that.
Don't
shit
be a puss.
Because
but the thing is, you can't give them conflicting shit where you then you charge them for being too aggressive too. Shit has to be clearly defined. The rules of engagement.
Yeah.
You know.
Which, like I said, there is protocol.
He was clouding the rules of engagement, though. He was saying that it was a barricaded fucking hostage type situation. That's not what it was.
I thought from what he was saying, because like I said, there's a lot of footage of him, because from the body cams and stuff. And I thought from what he was saying that he was trying to imply, at first at least, that Salvador was in there alone, that he had barricaded himself in the room. And it's like, oh, we have him contained. Yeah. Which might have been why that email went out to the parents that said, oh, the teachers and kids are safe because we have the threat contained. Like they were saying shit like that. The threat was not contained. It was still an active shooter situation, but they weren't treating it like that.
Zombie said something right there.
Says Arredondo was a post-turtle. We don't know how he got where he was, neither does he, but he doesn't belong there, and he didn't get there on his own.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
he's a post-turtle, somebody who got to their post by turtling their way into it. He's a post-turtle, yeah.
But it's just, he
was promoted above his station.
Like I said, he doesn't seem like a bad person.
No,
he's just not for this job.
Yeah.
He just can't do this job.
And the institutions have to make an example out of him.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah. Like I said, he wasn't the only one at fault because I saw numerous people walking around.
When you're in command, everything's your fault. When you're in command, when you are in command, the failure is your fault.
Well, yeah.
You never blame anybody else.
But then him trying to say that he didn't know he was in charge and all this other kind of shit.
If your men fail at the mission, it's because you failed to train them. There's all kinds of, when you join into a military or any kind of police situation, the commanders are always fucking at fault. And this goes back even Star Trek with fucking Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk was under that pressure because it was all on him. If the mission failed, he had to take the fall for it. That's why they're all the discipline on the ship. That's the way the militaries have run that way for hundreds of years for a reason, because that's the way that way works. You can't go around putting it on the men and blowing shit rolling downhill. That only happens in corporations and civilians and shit. Now it can happen in the military too, especially among generals. But down in the fighting trenches, people see it when it happens and it gets called out. And it's something like this. You got him on video after the ass and making the wrong calls. So he's got to go down.
There's so much video.
Yeah. He didn't unleash his men, which that's what he should have done.
Yeah.
They wanted to go in there.
Hundreds of men just standing around doing nothing.
Yep.
While his kids were bleeding out in there.
Yeah.
Fucking ridiculous.
His priorities were up his ass.
Yep. It's just a fucking sad story.
He was a desk jockey.
And I kind of feel like out of all the fucking school shootings, I feel like this one doesn't get brought up as much. And I wonder if that's why.
Because it's an embarrassment.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why. Like, cops don't really want to talk about it because it's too embarrassing.
Well, another thing is that the government doesn't want you to feel like you're not protected by the strong hand of a protective master. Listen to us. We will protect you. Yeah, no. I lived through Katrina. Okay, I was working for a company that supported the police out of Baton Rouge during that time. That was a clusterfuck. The police all ran. They left all the old people in the convalescence homes to die from the flooding. Fucking some of the cops went rogue, started stealing cars and raping women. There was rapes going on, gang rapes happening inside that damn fucking Coliseum, Astrodome, what they and that called it wasn't called the Astrodome. I forgot what it was called, that fucking thing down in New Orleans. And also in the evacuation buses, man, it was fucking horrible. There were shootings going on. People were shooting at the rescue helicopters. They had to send a National Guard in there. General Honore and the National Guard went in there to fucking neutralize a bunch of rogue cops. Well, they were cops with gangsters, or maybe it was gangsters in cop uniforms. And then they had to disappear all that shit. There was a lot of inter-civilian shootings. Girls that were sleeping on the front porch because it was so hot, because there was no power, getting abducted and never seen again. There's still thousands of people missing, presumed dead from that.
Yep.
You know, it was like something out of The Walking Dead, the movie The Walking Dead. It's like that. Cops went rogue and fucking killed a bunch of people on a fucking bridge. I don't know all the details of that. I just know that happened. And a lot of those guys ended up in prison. Yeah, cops were breaking down. They had to bring them in from other states. That went on for a long time. The veneer of civilization is very thin. You know, you miss 9 meals. If a city misses 9 meals, you now have anarchy, and it's gonna go out of control probably, especially if there's no power. Gonna go bad. So no, my advice to you is learn how to protect yourself and your family. Know who your neighbors are. Know the ones that are bad and which ones are good. We live in Florida. There's hurricanes here. Keep a stockpile of emergency food, canned goods, emergency generators, gasoline. You know, if a storm hits, you can siphon the gas out of your cars and run your generators, run your refrigerators, ice makers, and shit like that. Get fucking water purification abilities. You know, water filters. Learn to take care of yourself for a month without power if you had to. Jen had to live, what, how long? Month and a half without power?
No, it was only 8 days.
8 days? I thought you said it was one time where they had that storm. Oh, okay.
No, it actually wasn't even a hurricane. It was a tropical storm, but we had 4 of them hit like within 6 weeks of each other.
All right.
And yeah, the power was out for, I think it was 8 days, might have been slightly longer, and the street was flooded too, so you couldn't really go anywhere.
Longest we've been without it, I think, was 4 days, wasn't it? Remember that time?
Something like
that.
Wasn't
that like 4 days?
That was in Sanford, I think.
Down Sanford. It was miserable.
Yeah,
and it was the dead of summer.
Well, yeah, that's usually.
Yeah.
Although I feel like September, October is when the worst ones hit.
I think it was 4 days, wasn't it?
I don't remember. It was a while.
We had to get in the bathtub.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, you know, I just this whole, like I said, I watched the documentary about it, like several documentaries about it, and I watched that one like 2 times, but it's just I don't know, it just kept making me mad like all over again, because it's just, I know that like a lot of, you know, sadly a lot of the kids were dead like immediately. Okay, I know that, but there were, I mean, the casualties wouldn't have been nearly as bad if they had just gone in there and killed that.
They couldn't treat the wounded.
Motherfucker.
Wounded went untreated for 77 minutes, so a lot of them died.
Yeah, because they were just bleeding out. Because some of them were still alive. Like even that little girl when she called, she said there were 8 or 9 that were still alive.
Little kids can't apply tourniquets and do first aid, especially when there's a gunman watching them.
Well, yeah, he was walking back and forth between the 2 rooms. You know what I mean? So they would just like hide or play dead, like when he came in the room, and when he went in the other room, they would try to like clandestine like call. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's fucking heartbreaking to fucking watch. It's a horrible, depressing story. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show about it, if that's if that's the word. But yeah, we always talk about depressing topics.
We're back Friday.
Yeah, so we're gonna wrap it up for this evening. I've been up since like 4:30 a.m. I woke up because I had to pee, and then I couldn't go back to sleep for some stupid reason. Yeah,
Zombie Burner remembers that all I saw on television, the Astrodome and everything, that people don't talk about it anymore. Yeah, they hid that. There used to be YouTube videos, dead bodies, guys that were fucking laid out around certain neighborhoods because they were going in there trying to steal food, and the people that were in that neighborhood were shooting them. And who knows how many of those dudes were just people walking. It was like something out of fucking The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up for this evening. Have a good rest of your night, you guys. We'll be back on Friday night for the Sidetrack show. It'll be a little bit shorter because we got to do Abyss on Friday night.
Yeah.
But we'll be here for a couple hours or something like that. just having a drink and shooting the shit. So hopefully you guys can join us for that. Have a good rest of your evening. Have a good day tomorrow, and we'll see you guys again on Friday night. Good night.